Have you ever wondered if a simple act of kindness could change the course of your life? Sometimes, the smallest choices are the ones that define our destiny. She was an ordinary woman, always focused on the next task, with no time to stop and reflect. Her days were a constant cycle of commitments, deadlines and routines, work, traffic, home. Everything seemed like part of an endless loop. The idea of stopping, breathing and looking around seemed almost like a luxury. But on this particular day, something was different. It was a typical morning, cloudy skies and the cool spring air. She hurried along the streets of the city, as usual, when something at the corner of her vision made her slow down. It was a homeless man sitting on a makeshift cardboard bench on the sidewalk. He was covered with a dirty blanket, but his eyes were alert, watching the movement around him. She had passed by him countless times before. He seemed just like another person on the streets, invisible to most. But today she couldn't explain it. Something in his gaze made her stop. He looked at her in a way that was different, as if he knew something she didn't. Without understanding why, she paused. She was running late for work, as always, and her mind was filled with worries. But something in that man's eyes made her look back at him more intently. His eyes, once empty and worn by life on the streets, now seemed deeper, as though they carried some hidden wisdom. In an instant, she found herself approaching him. It was an odd gesture outside her usual character, but something guided her. She didn't know what to do or say, so she simply stood there, observing him. He looked at her with a subtle smile, not the typical smile of a beggar asking for help, but something more enigmatic, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Then he extended his hand and handed her a crumpled piece of paper. The gesture was so simple, yet so full of mystery. Not knowing what to do, she accepted the paper and walked away, still unsure of what had just happened. "Read it when you are alone." She didn't fully understand the meaning of those words, but something inside her told her it wasn't something trivial. She couldn't just ignore the act. With the paper in her hands, she continued her way, feeling both confused and curious. When she arrived home, she put her bag on the table and sat down. The crumpled paper seemed even stranger now, as if it held more weight than it appeared to. She took a deep breath, unfolded it, and began to read. The words were written in simple, clear handwriting. Destiny is shaped by the choices we make. What you choose today may change everything. Sometimes opportunities are hidden in small gestures, in quiet moments, but you need to be aware to recognize them. She read it again, trying to understand what it meant. Who was this man? What did he want from her? She continued reading, and then her eyes stopped at the last line. Go to the address written, and everything will be revealed. She sat in silence for a few moments, thinking. She didn't know what to make of it, but curiosity drove her forward. Something told her she couldn't ignore what had just happened. The next day, she decided to follow the instructions on the paper. The address seemed to be in a distant neighborhood, a place she had never noticed before. The walk was peaceful, but inside a mix of anxiety and excitement began to grow. When she finally arrived at the location, she found a simple building, its facade plain but with an odd sense of energy, as though something important was about to unfold. She hesitated in front of the building. It felt different, yet familiar. She entered the building and was greeted by a receptionist who led her to a small room. The air was thick with anticipation. Inside the room, a letter was waiting for her on a table. The receptionist said calmly, "Miguel was waiting for you. He chose you." She was stunned. Miguel? Who was this Miguel? She didn't know what to do, but she picked up the letter and opened it with trembling hands. The letter revealed something she couldn't have imagined. The homeless man wasn't what he seemed. In fact, he had chosen to live on the streets to test people's hearts. He wanted to see who, among all those passing by, would be able to recognize him as more than just a homeless figure. The letter continued, explaining that he had chosen her for a reason. She had a purity in her heart, a sensitivity to see what others didn't. He believed she was capable of carrying on his legacy. And the most surprising part of the letter was the final section, where he revealed that she had been chosen to inherit his fortune and take on his work. He knew she had something special within her, and because of that, he trusted her to continue his mission. She sat down, absorbing every word of the letter. What had happened to her was something she could never have imagined. How had this man, seemingly so simple and poor, seen something so special in her? How had she been chosen? But more importantly, what would she do with this? As the pieces began to fall into place, she realized the true meaning of it all. She hadn't just received wealth. She had received the chance to transform her life and the lives of others in a meaningful way. She understood that life isn't something to be passively awaited. Sometimes the greatest changes don't come from grand events, but from small gestures. She recognized that the opportunities had always been around her, but it was necessary to pay attention in order to see them. And with that, she stood up. With a new sense of purpose and determination, she was ready to write the next chapter of her life. Never underestimate the power of a simple gesture. Your destiny may be closer than you think.